All right, folks, we are back. It has been a couple months. I have been busy as hell, and I have posted exactly 0 reviews. But that's how things tend to go here. Bunch of hunting, take a break, gather all the data from the hunting, pump out the reviews. And that's exactly what we're here to do today. So I just finished 6 weeks of guiding black bear in British Columbia, and then I went to the Shoot2Hunt course for a week down in Montana. And that entire time, I was using the new Teratorn bag, which is a collab between Shoot2Hunt and Exo. So basically, the guys over at Shoot2Hunt, primarily Ryan and Form, designed what they believe to be the best late season, cold weather, kind of do-it-all expedition grade pack, and then Exo built it for them. Most hunters obsess over the frame, and rightly so. How it carries, how it distributes weight, what it's made of. But the truth is, the bag is where 100% of your gear lives. And if the bag fails, your system fails. And I learned that more so this year than any other year. So over black bear season, we killed 5 bears with 6 hunters. Now, that meant a lot of last minute setups. It meant a lot of weird setups. It meant a lot of spiking out. It meant a lot of constantly getting in and out of your bag. And packing for like one trip a couple of times a year is one thing. Going in and out constantly, you really start to recognize the efficiencies and the lack of efficiencies in your bag setup. Also, when you're getting to shooting setups, being able to get your bag off quickly, get your rifle off quickly, get prone quickly, have your bag act as a stable setup without a bunch of stuff moving around. I really had the opportunity to get a lot of experience condensed into a relatively short period of time this year. First of all, what is the Teratorn? I have found the best way to describe it, if you've been around hunting for a while, it is like the Kifaru Fulcrum and the Exo K4 had a baby, and it's better looking and smarter than either of them. It's basically a wing style bag. So it has a main compartment down the middle, and then it has these 2 wings that you can use for extra storage that are extraneous to the bag. This has been one of my frustrations with bags that have one main chamber, is they basically put 2 slits in the side and they call them pockets, but if you fill the chamber up first, you can't put anything in these side pockets. Anyways, I'm jumping ahead of myself a little bit here, but essentially the overview of the pack is a highly versatile, highly configurable main chamber system that's split up into a top and bottom section and then combined with 2 fairly significant wings that you can use to add gear and also aid in the compression or not aid in the compression of the bag itself. Now, there's all kinds of other bells and whistles like trekking pole attachments, shock cord, different stretchable sleeve pockets, and we're going to get into all of that, but I just think it's important everybody starts off with a basic understanding of this pack. Now, I'm going to use a somewhat different scoring system for this review. So I've split things into 3 classes and a total of 14 categories. Now I'm going to give it a score out of 10 on each category because I'm only reviewing one bag, and the idea here would be that a perfect bag would get a 10 out of 10 or a 100% when we're done. And I'm going to walk through and I'll score each category out of 10, and when we get to the end, we'll average it, and that will be my overall score for this pack. I'm hoping what to do is, now that I've reviewed a lot of frames, I can start focusing on individual bags, and hopefully we can build up a nice database of these kind of 10-point scoring systems on the packs themselves. Now, before we dive into that, little bit of update on outfitting because I've been getting lots of emails. So I'm about 60% booked for spring bear next year. So if you want to come to British Columbia and chase big old mountain black bears with any weapon, rifle, or bow, I'm booking from the last week of April to the second week of June. You want any more information, jay@mindfulhunter.com. Also, I have one kind of really special trophy black bear hunt set aside for the first week of September. I have a really big river that runs through the middle of my territory, and I recently bought an inflatable kind of drift raft, one of the Flycraft ones, and we're going to drift that. I think it would be ideal for an archery hunter, but a rifle guy could come as well. the salmon run the last week of August and the first week of September, and I think there's highly likely going to be very large black bears on this river. I'm actually headed out next week to drift that river for the first time and set up a bunch of cams. So if you're interested in that, let me know. I also have 2 spots left this year for archery mule deer in Alberta. Awesome hunt, big giant bucks, super high opportunity rates. And then I've opened up 1 more spot for an any weapon mule deer hunt in November here in British Columbia. So if you want any information about hunts, jay@mindfulhunter.com. Okay, so let's get into the individual categories that I'm going to assess. They are price, weight, capacity, fabric, build quality, weather resistance, buckles and zippers, straps, access, pockets and pouches, hydration compatibility, meat shelf protection, compression, and packing system. First up, let's dive into price. So this bag costs $365. You can buy it with the K4 frame if you want. If not, you can buy it standalone for $365. To put that in perspective, a 7200 bag by itself is $314. And a fulcrum, which is the bag we're going to compare it to here, is $375. Now, one thing to note is that there is no lid when you buy the fulcrum, but the Teratorn comes with the lid. So the lid is an extra $100. So basically, to get a comparable fulcrum, you're looking at $475, which is $110 more, or almost 35% more than the Teratorn. So I'm going to give the Teratorn a 10 out of 10 here. For the versatility and the configurability, all the bells and whistles that are attached to this thing, to have it out the door at $365, I think is a very competitive price. Up next, we're going to look at weight. So the bag itself weighs 3 pounds, 11 ounces. A K4 7200 weighs 2 pounds, 8 ounces. And the fulcrum weighs somewhere around 4 pounds. If you go back to my original backpacking video, you'll notice there was like a little bit of drama over the weight of the fulcrum because Kifaru was hyper aggressive in marketing it as being much lower weight than it actually was. Now, when I weighed my fulcrum with the frame, it was 8.9 pounds. And that was with the duplex light frame. And even if we take off 4 pounds for the frame, you're still left with 4.9 pounds for the bag, which is significantly heavier than the Teratorn. So I'm going to give the Teratorn an 8 because while it is competitive against similarly configurable bags, it's not going to compete with the super minimalist bags like the Stone Glacier bags and the 7200 from K4. Capacity. So the bag itself, including the wing pockets, is 6,750 cubic inches. The lid holds an additional 650 cubic inches, and that gives us a total of 7,400 cubic inches. Now the same figures for the K4 7200 are 7,180 and 650, giving us a total of 7,830, and the fulcrum is 7,800 plus 800. So the fulcrum is really the king here with 8,600 cubic inches. The 7200 comes in second place at 7,830. I've also never understood why they marketed it as the 7200. When the bag and the lid combined have a total of 7,800 cubic inches, personally, I think it should be the K4 7800. I don't know very many people who run the Exo system without the lid. The Exo lid is arguably the best defined lid in the hunting industry. So I personally think it should be the K4 7800. And sometimes I actually mistakenly call it that in my reviews. And then the Teratorn comes in at 7,400. Now I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 here. This is, and I'll get into like a more thorough critique as we proceed, but this was one of my disappointments. If you're going to market something as like a late season cold weather expedition bag, I think it should have stomper capacity. I really want to see more packs in that 8,000 cubic inches when you include the lid. I live in BC. I know a lot of people who do 10 to 12 day goat hunts and sheep hunts. When you start getting 10 and 12 days worth of food in a pack, it is ridiculous how much space that eats up. I really believe if you want to produce a pack for like the general public that wants to do 10 to 12 day hunts, you should be hitting that 8,000 cubic inches. Now I'm going to get into the packability of the Teratorn. And the reason I gave it a 7 instead of a 5 or a 6 for this category is that even though it has 430 less cubic inches than the K4 7200, I would argue you can actually fit more stuff into it. And the reason for that is the side pocket issue I mentioned earlier. With the wing pockets, I think there's something like 825 cubic inches each, but you can maximize all of that space because they're extraneous to the bag itself. Whereas the side pockets on the 7200, it's kind of like a cannibalistic approach. It's like you can either put stuff in the side pockets or you can put stuff in the main chamber, but you can't fill up both simultaneously. The other thing that we're going to get into here shortly is that the Teratorn has an unbelievable amount of extra storage, like exogenous storage. So it's got shock cord down the front that you can stuff your puffy into or your rain jacket. It's got these stretchable sleeves that you can put gloves and beanies and all kinds of things. So even though the capacity inside the bag itself is only 7,400, I think it packs much larger than that. However, if I'm going to be honest, I wish they'd have made the chamber a little bit bigger and tipped over that 8,000 cubic inch total. So if we look at the descriptive class as a whole, price, weight, and capacity, it averages 8.3. Moving on to the construction class, we're going to start with fabric. I give it a 10 out of 10. This is mil-spec 500D Cordura, the same thing that the K4 7200 is made out of. And as of right now, still my favorite fabric for backpacks. I know everybody's falling all over themselves with the Ultra and a bunch of these other X-Pack and these kind of next-gen fabrics. With my experience, the durability doesn't hold up, the water resistance doesn't hold up, and even when they are as water resistant as they claim, water still gets in through holes and seams and when you leave your bag open, but because they're so water resistant, the water can't evaporate out, which is a major problem. So for me, mil-spec 500D Cordura all day. So 10 out of 10 on that. Build quality, giving it a 10 out of 10. This was built by Exo. I have had my Exo prototype, I can't even remember now, is it 2 seasons or 3 seasons? I think it's 3 seasons I've been running it for. And I have beat the living piss out of this thing. And I don't have, the only thing, I have a very small hole on the front, and that's because I packed it to the tits and then took it on a flight and the airline beat the shit out of it. But I have no tears, no seams giving away, no pressure marks, like nothing going on with that pack. So yeah, 10 out of 10 for build quality. Weather resistance, I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. I think that's kind of the highest. Again, an Ultra might score higher on weather resistance, but to me, it's a less practical fabric. Buckles and zippers, I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. So they're using the same YKK zippers that are on the 7200 and the same buckles that are on the 7200, which I love. And some of my feedback was actually played a role in some of those buckles changing off the prototype because they used to be a lot harder to open, and on winter hunts, they were just really frustrating. But love both of those attachments, the zippers and the buckles. However, I think they should include 2 or 3 auto-locking buckles extra. Like, I think when you buy the pack, you should get a little bag with 2 or 3 auto-locking buckles, because there are a couple places on the bag, primarily where the wing pockets attach to themselves, where if you go to lift the bag up, those kind of open up really easily. And as always, when you're strapping down a rifle, if the buckle falls anywhere close to the stock or the barrel of the rifle and is at an odd angle, it will come loose on you. So I think the perfect solution for this would be just to conclude, like, in the lid or something, 2 or 3 auto-locking buckles, and then once an individual has run the pack for a little bit and thought, okay, here's the 2 or 3 locations I'd like an auto-locking buckle, they can replace them themselves. So for that reason, they're getting a 9 out of 10 instead of a 10 out of 10. So if we look at the construction class totals, we are averaging 9.3. Now we're gonna move on to layout and performance. So first off, we're gonna start with straps. Now I gave this an 8 out of 10. So there's a lot about the straps that I love. I love the webbing that they've used. I've loved the placement. I have 2 problems, which is why I've deducted them 2 points. The first one is, I think they should have had a built-in rifle sling on this pack. I don't really like the way that the K4 rifle sling attaches. It's always cockeyed at weird angles, and it just doesn't line up quite how I'd like it. And I think if you're gonna have a pack that's kind of, I wouldn't say it's primarily meant for rifle hunters, but knowing Ryan and Form, they definitely had rifle hunters in mind when they designed this pack. I think they should have either had a permanently attached rifle sling or one that could be moved from the middle at the back of the pack, so you could carry the rifle up the middle of your back for when you're on long hikes, and then either move it or permanently attach it to the side where you run your rifle up under one of the bat wing pockets. Now, this would have weighed a couple ounces. It's literally just a little bit of extra strapping. I think, especially for us in Canada, we can't use suppressors. We tend to have longer barrels with brakes. If you use the pockets that they've designed, you get a lot of barrel hanging up over the top of the pack. And when you're in really thick vegetation, it's a bit of a pain in the ass. And I think for a pack that already kind of put its stamp on the fact that, like, listen, we want to think of everything and have it integrated into the pack. It's different when it's a minimalist pack. Then it's like, okay, I should have to go buy a bunch of accessories. But for a pack like this, I really think it would have been wise to include a rifle sling of some kind. And I think they should have built-in strap keepers. So there's straps all over this bag, which I love. But for instance, when I'm archery hunting mule deer in Alberta, it's windy as hell. And that noise of all the straps slapping against the side of your bag can literally blow a stock on you. And I think there's this great method now where you leave a loop in the end of the straps and you kind of sew in like a little Velcro strap keeper that just hangs there. And when you get your straps the way you like them, you just kind of roll up the strap, close the strap keeper. It's just like on the meat shelf of the frame for the K4. I think they should have included those. So for those two reasons, I'm giving the straps category an 8 out of 10. So for access, the Teratorn gets a 9 out of 10. I love that I can quickly access everything without dumping my bag. And one of my favorite things that I'll show you at the end is I use the bottom chamber for my sleep system. So it's got my shelter, my sleeping bag, and my sleeping pad. So when I get to a new location, if it's pissing rain, I don't have to dump out my whole pack. All my stuff doesn't get wet. I literally undo one horseshoe zipper at the bottom, set up my shelter, put my pad inside, inflate it, put my bag inside, roll it out on my pad. Then I can bring my backpack inside of the shelter. None of my stuff gets wet. It is literally one of my favorite things about this pack. However, I do not like the fact that where the lid strap attachments are placed on the front of the bag, you have to do up the wing pockets over top of the lid, which means I have to open up the wing pockets to open up the lid. And it's just clunky. And I've been going over different ways to arrange these straps, but it can't be done. I've been going over different ways to arrange the straps, but just with where all the buckles are attached, there's just no way to do it. Maybe when the bag is 100% completely full and those wings are way out to the side, you can get it. But I was just having a think on it. One option would be to put a second set of buckles on the actual wing pockets for when the bag is fully compressed. Then the lid could come down over top of the wings and the zippers for the wings would still be to the side of the lid straps. And then another thing would just be to move those buckles even further down so the whole lid straps come over top of the wings. The only issue there is then you're adding compression to the wings when you may not want to. So again, I don't have a perfect solution for this problem, and maybe the boys had this conversation. You know, when Ryan sent me this pack to review, he said very clearly, I don't want to give you any context. I don't want to tell you what our intentions were or how we plan to use it, because I want you to just naturally figure out if you like it or don't like it and how you would naturally use it. So it'll be interesting to talk to him after this review and see if that was something they struggled with as well. But due to that kind of just clunkiness, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Moving on to pockets, 10 out of 10. The wing pockets are phenomenal. The stretch sleeve pockets are excellent. The dual bottom pockets are amazing. Like, if you like a highly configurable pack with lots of versatility, you are going to love all the pockets and all the options you have on this pack. Hydration, 10 out of 10. Obviously, you're running it on the K4 frame, so you always have my favorite form now of hydration, which is that tilted Nalgene pocket that goes on the hip belt itself. But there's also a protected hydration bladder sleeve in the back of the pack, so you can carry your bladder back there. You don't have to worry about the fact that if it leaks, it's going to get liquid all over your gear. For the meat shelf protection, again, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. I want to tell you a little story. So Anthony was up this year. Anthony and Ben came for the last week. We probably had the most amazing week of bear hunting I had all season. We killed 2 phenomenal bears, both amazing kills. Anthony's was this 310-yard cross canyon shot. It was beautiful. When we were packing that bear out, I think we had close to 6 to 8 kilometers or 6 miles. Anyways, it was a decent pack out. All on roads. It wasn't that bad. But when we got back to the truck, it looked like Anthony had violent, bloody diarrhea. Literally, the entire back of his pants, the entire back of his shirt, there was just blood down the entire back of his body because he was using a KUIU pack. There was no protection on that pack for all the blood coming out of the animal. Ben had a K4 and I had a K4 with the Teratorn on it. Neither of us had a drop of blood on us because the way that hydration bladder protection kind of curves around the bottom of the pack, it also stops any blood coming out of the game bags from like dripping down your back while you're hauling out meat. Moving on to compression, I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. Here's the deal. This pack is not great when compressed into day mode. It was the same problem I had with the Fulcrum. Now this pack is better than the Fulcrum was, but these wing pockets, they're hard sewn into the side of the bag, and then the only place they attach is in the middle with 2 buckles. And you can only get those buckles so tight. Now, if the bag is 100% completely empty, and then you have these wing pockets attached, you do kind of get this shuffling of the wing pockets back and forth. It's not a deal breaker, but for those of you that are primarily day hunters, this is not going to be your ideal setup because there's going to be more movement in this pack than you want. Now, that being said, it is excellent when loaded or hauling meat. Now, could there be a second set of buckles on the underside of the wing pockets so you could actually attach the bellies of those 2 pockets with no straps whatsoever, just so when the pack was empty, those 2 wing pockets would be super tight? Potentially there would be another way so that it wouldn't be as floppy when the pack isn't loaded. One thing I want to say that I love is that there are 2 holes under the wing pockets where the compression straps for the main compartment goes. And this is one of my main problems with the hoodlum. So the new hoodlum has these 2 side pockets, but the compression straps for the bag itself come over those pockets. So anything you put in those pockets gets crushed when you're trying to really compress the main compartment. What I like about the Teratorn is that your main compression straps come under the pockets, you compress your main chamber, then you fill up your bat wing pockets and you tighten the back wing pockets as tight or as loose as you want. Now the great thing about this is you can slide a rifle up one side and choose how much compression you want on your rifle. That wing pocket protects your scope, negating the need for an extraneous scope cover, like an insulated or some type of like puffy scope cover. Also, if you want to put your bow on the back of the pack, you don't need to apply the same compression to your bow that you do to the main chamber. You compress your bag, get everything the way you want it, lay your bow on top of that, flap your wing pockets over, and then apply the desired amount of compression to your wing pockets and through them to your bow. All right, folks, so now I'm gonna walk through how I like to pack the Teratorn. And what's more important than how I like to pack it is the fact that it's so individually configurable. This is a pack you're gonna have to spend some time with to learn how you like to pack it. So let me just go over in broad strokes. So this would be packed up for anything from like a 7-day to a 12-day hunt. So everything is fully loaded. I'm taking lots of extra gear. I've got trekking poles. I got my camp Crocs. I got my rifle loaded up for a big long hike. If I think there's a possibility that I'm gonna run into an animal, I don't tend to carry my rifle like this. But when I'm on a sheep hunt or a goat hunt or something where I know, I could be as much as a day or two even from getting to where I could have a shot, this is how I like to carry my rifle. So I got lots of stuff. Now, let me go over some of the highlights. Because and yes, I've already triple checked this. There's nothing in the rifle and it's unloaded. So if the muzzle points at anything, you don't need to stress. So one of the things that I love about the Teratorn is the way that you can pack your rifle behind one of the wing pockets. Because one of the things I struggled with for a long time is getting one of those padded rifle scope covers. Most of them weigh at least a half a pound. And if you knew the thousands of dollars I have spent trying to lighten my load for like long backcountry hunts, and then to just go throw another half pound back on your system doesn't make any sense. So what I do is in this wing pocket, I carry really light puffy stuff that I'm gonna need access to quickly. So I'll carry a rain jacket, I'll carry my puffy jacket, anything that's soft and squishy. And then what that does is it gives me that protection for my scope and my rifle. So rifle goes on that side. Something else, these little loops here that are connecting my Crocs are actually meant for trekking poles that I'll get to on the other side. But I love using them for my Crocs because if you do long backcountry hunts, taking Crocs is a great idea. But every single time you will strap your whole backpack up, you'll be done. And then you'll look on the ground and you'll be like, shit, I still got to put my Crocs on. And then all your buckles are already tensioned the appropriate amount. What I love about this little strap is that it's completely independent. So you can just put your Crocs on, take it off. I also have something else I like to do on day hunts with that loop that I'll get to in a minute. So shock cord serves two purposes. One, it'll hold my seat and it's easy to get quick access to it when I go and I want my glassing pad. Also, I've got a molinator here. Depending on how long of a hunt that I'm going on, what I will also do, and this is what I did at the Shoot2Hunt course, is you can carry your molinator in this shot cord here, and then when you get to where you're going, if you need to take a quick shot, you throw your pack on the back and you have this beautiful rifle rest ready to go. This is probably pretty close to 10 or 11 ounces, so not something that I would take on a long like sheep or goat hunt. But next year, for guiding, this will be on my pack almost 100% of the time, because when I'm with clients, we're only ever going in for a couple days, so a few extra pounds is not a big deal. And that way I can always throw my pack out and the client can take a shot. So shot cord is super handy. You can also mount more shot cord up here on the lid if you want to. Okay, so let's open up this side. I'll show you what I did here. So I do not use this top strap to loop in the gun, because if I need to, I can just pull this out. So literally all I had to do was undo that one buckle and I can get my rifle out. So if I did have a fast shot opportunity, my rifle is ready to go at a moment's notice. I will tighten this bottom buckle, but not the top one. I just use the pocket itself. There's also extra stretchy sleeves on the back of these. You can chuck hat, mitts, anything you want. So now we come over to the other side. In this side, I keep my optics, my coffee mug, and some more squishy stuff. So that's just an Argali pillow. This is a goat suit that we use in the winter, so you look like a goat. I got a pair of gloves, a beanie. This is my large size coffee mug. This is the one luxury item I take into the backcountry. I have a smaller version of this that's 500 mils. This one's 720. And then I have my spotting scope. Again, you will notice I have accessed a ton of gear and I have not touched the pack, okay? So nothing is strewn all out. I don't have a yard sale going on. Everything's still nice and tightly constrained. Now, if I come over on this side, I've got my tripod for glassing. And again, undo two buckles, this comes right out. I've got my poles for my shelter that I'm gonna get to in a second. And then again, you'll notice this second small strap up here keeps my trekking poles nice and constrained. The real genius of this pack is somewhat counterintuitive. A lot of people are gonna like one single large chamber. However, the way they've set it up is an upper chamber and a bottom chamber. And there's a zipped compartment divider here that you can open up if you want to. But I keep my entire sleep system in the bottom here. And let me tell you why this is brilliant. I also keep my first aid kit. Let me back up a second. Everything that is in the bottom compartment are things I want quick access to that I don't have to access the rest of the pack to get to. So when I hunt with people, I will tell them my first aid kit is in this pocket. As soon as you open the zipper, it's gonna be the first blue bag you see. That way, if I'm knocked unconscious, if I get a cut and lose consciousness, if anything happens that I can't communicate, they know where my first aid kit is. It's a good first aid kit. I've got a tourniquet, quick clot bandages, second skin, all kinds of fantastic stuff. I highly recommend too a dry bag for your first aid kits. So that's number one. Number two, this is a Z-Pax Dyneema shelter. This is a 7x9 shelter with 6 carbon fiber tent pegs and probably about 12 meters total of Dyneema cord. This entire package weighs 5.4 ounces. So anytime I want to stop, if it's pissing raining and I need to have a snack, if I want to make some coffee, if I'm going to be glassing and it's super sunny, I can get access to this without digging into the rest of my stuff. Now, most importantly, my entire sleep system is in here, except for my sleeping bag. So I have my shelter and my sleeping pad. And if you remember, the shelter poles were just shoved right in here. So a lot of times when you're on a hunt, it's pissing down rain, you get to where you're going, and you basically have to yard sale your bag because you've stuffed your shelter or your sleeping pad all the way at the bottom because it's the stuff you don't worry about getting crushed. This way, it's pissing rain, I show up, I literally open one pocket, undo one strap, I got my shelter, I got my poles, I set that up, I then take my sleeping pad, go into my shelter, inflate the sleeping pad, put it out, then I bring my pack into the shelter and I can slowly unpack everything as I want to, not worrying about everything getting wet. So this I love. However, if you don't, you can open the zipper and turn it into one large compartment. Now, as far as the lid goes, this is where I carry everything that I want in and out of all day. For me, it's usually a half a day's worth of food because I'll have already had breakfast, or I won't carry my dinner in here because lots of times I will leave dinner back at camp because I know I'm just going out to hunt for the day from camp. So I carry a half a day's worth of food, usually my little possibles kit. I will carry possibly some extra ammunition in the little part up front. And the last thing I always carry in here is my toilet paper and wet wipes. And then any other incidentals, like maybe a pair of sunglasses, maybe some lens wipes for my camera, like any small stuff, maybe my steri pen if I'm in an area where I'm constantly going to be filtering water. On that note, my favorite way to carry water is still the Nalgene in the Exo pocket. I love this thing. It's probably one of my favorite things about this pack. But there is a hydration bladder sleeve on this pack if you want to use it. That's waterproof, so you don't need to worry about if your bladder leaks, it getting onto all your gear. Also provides excellent protection from blood leaking out of your game bags while you're using the meat shelf into the rest of your pack. I did a ton of packing with this on the meat shelf this year for guiding. We killed 5 bears over 6 clients, and so I had a lot of opportunity to pack meat out on this. Still got openings for the rest of 25 and 26, so if you're interested in hunting BC or Alberta, hit me up, jay@mindfulhunter.com. I'm trying to think what else. Essentially then, you open the lid and you get full access to the main compartment, and this is where I carry everything else. My stove, my sleeping bag, my food, any other incidentals. You can also access this through the horseshoe zipper here. So if I tend to pack things every way the exact same time, and I will know where things are. Lots of times I'll have my stove here. So if I just want to make a quick cup of coffee, I can undo the zipper, bring out my stove, do what I need to do, stick it back in. So I do like having this access. I am not a big horseshoe access guy. I tend to go in from the top because if I'm going in here, I usually want quite a bit of stuff and I just don't like messing around with trying to get stuff out of little holes. There's a couple main points I want to drive home here. The reason I like this bag so much, like I said at the beginning, is that it's highly individualizable, meaning you can make this system your own. The other thing I like about it, after taking the Shoot to Hunt course with Form, I never realized how slow I was at getting ready to shoot. And so as soon as I came home, I started brainstorming ways that I could increase the efficiency of my system so that I can literally go from standing, fully packed, to prone, shooting sub 1 MOA groups at 100 yards in less than 10 to 15 seconds. And this system allows me to do that. The speed with which I can remove my rifle, also when I get to camp to get set up, the speed that I can set this stuff up with. Right, one last tip I wanted to share with you guys. So when I was guiding this season, or if you're going on any like 1 to 3 day hunts, these Helinox Chair Zeros are unbelievable. They really start to shine when you use image stabilizing binos because you don't have to sit right up on a tripod. You can just lean back in this chair and glass for hours. However, I was like, where do I stick these? Now, one nice thing, it does fit in one of the wing pockets, so you can fit it there. But the other thing I found that was super cool is that this fits perfectly on these two loops. So that's the other thing that I like to do if I'm on a hunt that's not going to be a long hunt and I'm not super concerned about weight. This is probably my favorite piece of gear from guiding bear this year. It was phenomenal. First year I've used it. Highly recommend it for those types of hunts and super cool. And see what I mean? Like, I guarantee Ryan or Form never thought, hey, let's put a couple loops here so some Yahoo from Canada can stick a Helinox chair on his backpack. But I can literally just set my backpack down. I don't have to take off a single strap, and literally in like 3 seconds, I've got access to my chair. So there you have it. That's how I like to pack my Teratorn. If you got any other questions, feel free to hit me up, jay@mindfulhunter.com. Okay, so going back over the final scores, the descriptive category got an 8.3, construction 9.3, and layout and performance a 9.3. So overall, that gives us an 8.96, or you could see that as an 89.6%. However works best for you to understand that. So let's talk about my final thoughts and recommendations. First of all, I think it was a mistake to market this bag as a late season cold weather bag. I'm already getting tons of questions. Literally, I could show you the IG Q&A put up. There's no fewer than 8 questions in there. Can I use this as an early season bag? I don't really think bags have seasonality. They have style of hunt, how long you going in for, what weapon are you using. I mean, I've had summer hunts that take more gear than winter hunts just because the different type of weather you might be expecting or the different types of terrain that you're going through or things you might encounter. And so personally, I do not see this as a late season cold weather bag. Will I use it in the late season in cold weather? 100%. I'll be brutally honest. This is my new go-to bag. For me and my hunt style, this is as close to perfection as anything I've seen yet. Again, on my own scoring system, I gave it an 8.96. So there's literally only 10 points out of 100 that I could have added, and they're very minor things that, again, might be my own personal preferences. But just to address that concern right away, this is not solely for late season cold weather use. Now, who is this not for? This is not for the minimalist hunter. I'm thinking like Kurt from Stone Glacier, this is not his jam. I know other guys, this is not their jam. This is not for the primarily 1 to 3 day hunter. Like if you live local to your animals and you do like 1 to 2 day, bivvies, there are probably lighter, easier to configure systems than this one. However, if you're a versatile hunter and you do a whole lot of stuff, it can still operate very well for those shorter durations. And that's like me, like I was using it as a day bag for almost all of my bear guiding season and then even for the Shoot to Hunt course. So, but if you're a minimalist guy looking for the lightest system possible, this is not for you. I kind of liken this to the old PC versus Apple argument. So when I was going to university, I was a computer technician. I used to build my own PCs back when you were still like kind of building PCs. And the big argument between the PC and the Apple guys, and later became the same argument between the Android and iOS guys, was that you could do whatever you wanted to a PC. You owned it. You could choose which video card went with which motherboard, which CPU, how much RAM, whereas Apple just kind of like rammed this piece of technology down your throat. And I kind of feel like most pack systems these days, like the Stone Glacier, like the 7200, not a lot of options. You can put a hip belt pocket on it if you want, but there's not really a whole lot you can do. If you have that more of that PC mentality, you like highly configurable things, you like to make things your own, and you like to tinker and tweak, you're gonna love this pack. Final thing I wanna reference, which I recognize might not be applicable to everyone, is the shootability. So I recently did the Shoot2Hunt course, as I mentioned. It completely destroyed all these kind of assumptions I had about shooting. I have no plans to shoot off of a bipod or a tripod anymore. I am way more proficient off my backpack. I'm more stable, it's quicker. The thing I will say about the Teratorn, it is a fantastic pack to shoot off of. I'm gonna do a little video and showcasing nothing other than how I shoot off my Teratorn. You can have it standing and shoot off a wing pocket, standing and shoot off the center. You can flip it on the bottom. You can shoot off of a high section by getting on the wings. You can shoot off of a low section by getting between the upper and lower chamber. I have a molinator that I use under my shock cord to give me like this perfect rest in the middle. It's just, there's almost an infinite number of ways that you can shoot off this thing. And I love the fact that I don't need a scope cover anymore to protect my scope because of the bat wing pockets. And so that to me is a huge selling feature that maybe I need to start looking at more packs. I've never really assessed other packs for their shootability before, but after shooting close to, I think I shot 1,200 rounds over 5.5 days at this course. And I bet you 800 of them or 700 of them had to be off this pack. And it was outstanding. So listen, that's my review of the Teratorn. Not for everyone, but for the people who it is built for. Trust me, you will love this pack. And again, if you want any information about outfitted hunts in British Columbia or Alberta this year or next year, jay@mindfulhunter.com. If you can engage with the content in any way, shape, or form, like, comment, share, subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it. If there's other bags you want reviewed, drop them in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for tuning in.